Armored Core 6 is the best game I've played all year.
6, 2, 1. Ring. Remember who you're messing with. Well, or whatever. 1 new message.
Ring.
Gen 4s can be emotionally withdrawn.
From Software has delivered yet again. Now, to be honest, I have not played an Armored Core game since it looked like this. But I, like a lot of other people, really got to know From Software for their Darkborn, Kiro Ring games. So when they announced Armored Core 6 at the Game Awards, I was actually pretty hyped by the trailer. Not that I wouldn't have welcomed another Souls game, but after putting a few hours into Elden Ring, I was ready for a fresh experience. It has been a long time since I played a mecha style game, which is weird because I remember mech games being all over. Even if I haven't played a mecha game in a long time before Armored Core 6, mecha anime is one of my favorite genre. Gundam, Big O, Evangelion, Blue Gender, Knights of Sidonia, Code Geass, Robotech, Pat Labor, freaking Zoids. Just so many good mecha anime, and it makes perfect sense for them to translate into gaming. And that's what Armored Core is to its core. Get it? Its own mecha entity while wearing its influences right on its sleeves, that it feels new and familiar at the same time. The last game I can remember playing that had any kind of mech style elements to it was Xenoblade Chronicles X with the Skells. And you know, getting your Skell into the garage and buying different parts for it and customizing the paint. The whole time I was playing the game, I was like, man, this reminds me of that Armored Core game I used to play when I was a kid. And I'm so glad that FromSoft decided to bring back this beloved series, because this game does so many things so well. I mean, what other game lets you boost into another robot, blast them with the shotgun, and then punch them right in the balls with this giant pile bunker? Well, let's get into the things that I think that this game does really well, starting with the gameplay. I had a really tough time putting into words exactly what it was about Armored Core's gameplay that I like so much, but I think if I could boil it down to one word, it would be control. The moment I got control of my Armored Core, it felt good immediately. It may not have all the options available from the get-go, or I really understood all the mechanics, but I played with this starter AC build for a good while because it just felt comfortable. Not only did it feel good to be in control, but just how everything sounded. But I'm gonna save that for later. That's really the heart of the moment-to-moment gameplay, is the control you feel in your Armored Core, and what I love the most. Armored Core 6 really challenged and engaged me with how to get into the flow of this new style of movement, and there's a surprising amount of depth in the movement, from bunny hopping to melee cancel boosting, extending your assault boost. Just way too many movement techniques for a newcomer like me to grasp immediately, but it encouraged me to invest the time to learn these mechanics to enhance my gameplay. I really love that in some games. It's easy to pick up but difficult to master. Give me some tools and let me in there and figure it out and get comfortable. And that's what Armored Core does so well. Thankfully, there's some pretty good tutorials too. Not super in-depth, but gives you a non-consequence environment to learn some of these very surface level basics. And being able to test your Armored Core at any time is so awesome. Again, I feel like this is something that FromSoft is not really well known for, are their good tutorials. They're not really the best when it comes to explaining how the mechanics in their game works. I mean, seriously, where in Elden Ring does it tell you that golden parry gets the max amount of parry frames, or what a parry frame is, or that different shields have different parry frames, or that different weapons have different parry frames? They don't explain it in the game. It's nice to know the pros and cons of each leg type and how they change up your gameplay. Without the tutorial, I wouldn't have known that the reverse joint would allow you to jump higher, the quad legs would allow you to hover indefinitely, the advantages of the tank treads. But that's the good thing about Armored Core. It felt good right off the bat and only felt better the more you played and the more you unlocked. I mainly mean the OST chips earned in the arena or by retrieving combat logs. These will unlock a lot for you, but when it comes to movement, the quick turn and the boost kick will greatly enhance your maneuverability. And all this information becomes very relevant whenever you decide on how you're going to tackle your missions. Now, for me personally, I didn't change up my build too much once I found one I was super comfortable with, save for something like Intercept the Red Guns. But I feel like that's a net positive with Armored Core 6 as well, is that you can just pick one build that you're more comfortable with, but the game really encourages you to experiment and find what works really well with what mission. That's what I'd like to segue to next, is the mission-based system. Personally, I really like the mission-based system in Armored Core 6. It felt like a total throwback. You know, in this day and age when everything has to be these massive open world adventures, it was nice to kind of scale it back and be able to take our time in selecting what we're doing. Not only that, but your objectives are abundantly clear. You know, I've seen a lot of criticism for the mission-based system. Some people saying that there's too many missions that are too easy, some that are too short, some that are too long or too difficult, some that would prefer that every mission was super difficult and long, and I just think that they kind of hit the right balance with Armored Core 6's missions. Because you have to kind of think of it like this. If every single last mission in the game was nothing but heart-pounding, adrenaline-rushing, smashing your head into the brick wall, you can't get past this one mission, and then that's the same for every single mission, it would lead to a lot of players getting filtered out. And not only that, it would lead to more people using the same build just to conquer every mission. And while I think that there is room for this kind of difficult mission system in maybe a new game plus or a challenge mode, in a base game, I just don't see the point of it. I mean, look how many people cannot get past Balteus. So many Reddit posts and videos about people saying how cheap the fight is and how they couldn't beat it, to the point that FromSoft had to nerf the entire fight, which is a choice. I understand that difficulty is subjective, but I was able to beat Balteus with the starter AC. Just add another missile pod to my left shoulder. Boom, done. So when I cleared the boss and I saw the overwhelming vitriol reaction to the encounter, I was really confused. In terms of difficulty spikes, I would consider something like Margit to be a way more oppressive roadblock than Ball Boy over here, but then again, it's subjective and that's how I feel about it. I want to touch very briefly on the assembly system in Armored Core 6. This is really the heart of the whole game, customizing your armor core exactly how you want with what you have available, testing it out and seeing how it performs in different missions. There's so many different parts and variables that can help in different mission scenarios. I feel like I can't even begin to scratch the surface of it in this video, and I'm not going to attempt to. It's just really awesome to be able to try a mission, see what challenges you are facing, and then work around that with your armored core in the garage to see how you can get through it. But again, it goes back to my point about you can do that, or you can just continue to use whatever the hell you want. The game doesn't make you do that, aside from maybe using the stun needle launcher for one mission. In the garage, you also have the shop where you can buy parts that you've unlocked depending on where you're at in the game. A lot of these parts can be really expensive, but you can replay an easier mission over and over again and farm money and buy what you want. Or if you don't feel like doing that, you can just sell parts you're not using for parts you do want. You can sell them back at the price you bought them for, so there's zero buyer's remorse, and this allows for a insane amount of experimentation. See what you want. You don't like it, sell it back. I love this no consequence experimentation that the game gives you. That's what I was a little hesitant about with Armored Core 6. I hate the upgrade system in the Souls games. Not for how it works, but for how rigid it can be. You can find a weapon and not use it because it's not upgraded, or vice versa. You have a weapon that you've been upgrading that you're really not wanting to let go of just because you've already spent some of those finite resources on it. It's to the point where when people do subsequent playthroughs of different Souls games, they pick their weapons out in advance just so that they know what they're gonna be upgrading. At least that's what I do. But in Armored Core, that's not the case. No upgrading, none of that. You can mix and match parts to get more out of your weapon, sure, but the Zimmerman that I have is the same Zimmerman you're gonna have, and I love that. I also love part of the assembly is this decal image editor. It's like the worst version of Photoshop imaginable, but it is so cool to be able to just take whatever you want and put it on your armored core. And I don't just mean like emblems and graphics. You can make your armored core look weathered, have really sick looking gradient effects. There's almost limitless options with how you can use this image editor to customize your armored core. And if you want really good ideas of what you can do and what's possible, head over to Armored Decor Core on Reddit. Check out some of their posts. I want to touch on the PvP before I move on to the story. In Armored Core 6, you have 1v1 duels and 3v3 team fights. There are some variations to this with, loser circuits, winner circuits, whatever, but it's basically the same 1v1, 3v3 modes. And while this is fine, I don't really see the longevity to this, at least for me personally. There's no skill-based matchmaking, there's no ranking system, there's no rewards you get for PvP, there's nothing really there except for the fun of it, which, don't get me wrong, it is fun when it's fun. And this is kind of a complicated topic for me. Within the past 9 months, I had gotten really into Elden Ring PvP, and I never really PvP'd in Souls games before. And in Elden Ring, there's the same problems. You don't get any rewards for PvP aside from Souls and Rune Arcs, and the Colosseums give you no rewards at all. But I find the PvP possibilities in Elden Ring to be a lot more engaging. There's just so much more you can do in terms of your build, weapon variety, Ashes of War. You can do straight up meme builds and they're still viable, and I just find invading to be a lot more exciting than the lobby system that Armored Core has. Maybe I'm not plugged in enough to the community to go out there and find really good 3v3 lobbies or 1v1s, but I just honestly don't really find it that engaging after a while. When I'd be PvPing, I would get on, play for an hour, and then just kind of get bored and stop playing. Just getting really tired of seeing the same missile boat Zimmerman builds and just kind of checked out. I know that people have been playing the same Armored Core PvP for about a decade now, and that's totally cool for the hardcore fan base, but for someone like me that is more objectively motivated when it comes to player versus player combat, it just kind of feels bad that you have like all these cool mission scenarios and I could see two teams going at it and there's just nothing there really. And that'll lead me to the co-op in this game, which there is none. Now, from a lore standpoint, it makes perfect sense. You're playing a lone mercenary, and this is a very lone mission. But even within those missions, you team up with other factions and there are ACs. So it makes perfect sense that a friend or a random online could just take control of one of these pre-made ACs and go through the mission with you. Or they could just develop harder, longer missions or game modes for co-op specifically. I get that that's a pipe dream at this point, but I think that it would have added a lot of legs to the game. It's not required by any means. As a single player experience, Armored Core 6 just excels in so many ways, but I can see it being a really fun co-op game. Next, I want to talk about the story, sound design, and voice acting. It may seem kind of weird to lump these three together into one discussion, but I feel like they all go hand in hand, specifically with Armored Core. If you haven't played the game, you don't see any of the characters' faces. This can seem disconnecting at first, but the voice acting is so strong in this game that you really quickly forget about it. Every single character, which there's a lot of them, have such distinct voices, characteristics, personalities that you can just close your eyes and forget that you're not seeing them and they feel so real. This ties in with the sound design as well. This is another thing that FromSoft is not very well known for, or at least to my knowledge not really praised for much, is their sound design. But in Armored Core, it's just so immersive with the way that your Armored Core sounds moving around, boosting, jumping, shooting, that hazard beep that goes off when a grenade's flying your way, that awesome tone your AC makes when you scan an area, and the soundtrack having that mechanical like droning and moving forward and constant building. I know that the Game Awards are coming up in a few weeks, and Armored Core 6 wasn't nominated for Game of the Year, which I totally can see why it wasn't, but the fact that it wasn't nominated for a single voice actor, sound design, or music really just seems like a huge snub to me. I know this was a stacked year for gaming, but I have never played a game as immersive as Armored Core 6. You sit there with a straight face and tell me you didn't tear up when this happened.
Here we are, buddy. I was right all along. You were just another threat to Rubicon. Someone has to put an end to this injustice. Where did this resolve come from? You found your purpose, didn't you? This purpose you found. You finally showed me who you are. It's
remember him.
Or you sat there and didn't shed tears of joy when this happened.
It looks like the guest of honor's here. Hey, buddy. Never thought I'd be rubbing shoulders with the liberator of Rubicon. Every Rubiconian who heard your cry rose up to fight. Let's show them there's a future for Rubicon beyond these scorched skies.
And that's going to lead me to the story. Some of the biggest criticisms I've seen about Armored Core 6 was its story, and it makes it feel like these people played maybe 4 hours of the game, which that's totally fine. You can play 4 hours of a game and judge it on those 4 hours you played, but to say that something wasn't there that you didn't experience, that's a whole other subject. In terms of story, this is FromSoft's most direct storytelling. You are told at every instant what is happening, moment to moment. You're told character motivation, plot, why things are happening, how things are going to happen. In terms of pacing, I would call it almost a slow burn. The story evolves over time. You start out the game as a lone mercenary doing jobs on Rubicon with the goal to be making money, but as the game progresses, that starts to evolve depending on the choices you make, who you align with, who you take jobs from. I honestly think that modern gamers have been conditioned to think that story is everything stops, everybody stop. Two characters walk into frame, and then it's shot, reverse shot, two characters talking at each other, and that's what equals story. And I just don't understand it. The most surprising thing to me about Armored Core was its story being so good and compelling. Like I was talking about immersion, what is more immersive than riding a burning city-sized ship down to the surface of a planet while your former boss is standing in front of you trying to kill you as you're trying to stop him from burning up all the coral, which could lead to the deaths of millions of Rubiconians. And as he's trying to stop you, he won't stop praising you. But no, you're right. There is no story within these missions at all. No, you're totally f***ing right. I could sit there and listen to people criticize things. That's not the problem. People have every right to find things wrong or that they don't agree with or anything like that about any piece of media, no matter what. But to say that something just isn't there at all is disingenuous at best. And I really hate this narrative that's built up around Armored Core 6 about all these great, amazing things, but that one thing about it is just really not there. And it's not like I need validation in my opinion about it, but what I do need is people to buy this frickin' game so that they make more of it, because that's the one thing this game did wrong to me, is that it left me wanting more. I wanted so much more. After every playthrough, I picked it right back up and started from the beginning again. Everything about playing the game is just so addictive. I haven't played a game that made my adrenaline pump like this ever before. No Sekiro, no nothing like it has made me feel like Armored Core 6 has. And that's not just mindless monkey mush, it's also the pointed voice acting, these story beats, these emotional moments happening, accompanied by this soundtrack that just encompasses the entire experience of the game. Armored Core 6 isn't just a game, it's a mecha masterpiece that captures the essence of nostalgia while delivering a fresh and immersive experience. From Software has once again proven their prowess in game design, and I can't wait to see what they have in store for us. Well, that's gonna do it for me. Until next time, Ravens.